What if I told you that the thing causing most of your stress, anxiety, and conflict isn't actually real? What if the source of almost every argument, every misunderstanding, every moment of self-doubt was nothing more than a collective hallucination humanity has agreed to believe in? What if opinions, those thoughts we treat as sacred, those beliefs we're willing to fight for, those judgments we base our entire identities on, what if they never actually existed at all? Today, we're going to explore the most mind-bending possibility you've never considered: a world without opinions. And by the end of this video, you might realize that world has always been here, waiting for you to notice. Right now, your mind is a battlefield. Not a battlefield of armies or weapons, but a battlefield of opinions. Good opinions, bad opinions, right opinions, wrong opinions, popular opinions, unpopular opinions. Every single moment of your waking life, you're forming, defending, or worrying about opinions. You have opinions about the weather, about your breakfast, about the person who cut you off in traffic. You have opinions about politics, religion, relationships, success, failure, and what everyone else should do with their lives. You have opinions about your opinions and opinions about other people's opinions about your opinions. But here's what no one ever asks. What if all of this is unnecessary? What if the entire concept of opinion is just a story we tell ourselves? What if underneath all these layers of judgment and evaluation, there's a reality that exists completely independent of what anyone thinks about it? Think about it. Before you learned to have opinions, what was your experience like? Before someone taught you to judge things as good or bad, beautiful or ugly, right or wrong, what did you actually perceive? Was there a moment in your early childhood when you just experienced reality without the constant commentary of evaluation? Here's the most shocking realization you'll ever have. Opinions aren't discoveries of truth. They're inventions of meaning. When you say that movie was amazing or that person is annoying, you're not uncovering some hidden property of the movie or person. You're creating a story about them. The movie doesn't contain amazingness waiting to be discovered. The person doesn't have annoyingness as an inherent quality. These are mental constructions, fictional narratives you've imposed on neutral reality. Every opinion you've ever held is the result of conditioning. Your parents' opinions became your starting point. Your culture's opinions became your framework. Your experiences became your evidence. Your emotions became your proof. But none of this actually tells you anything about reality itself, only about the story you've learned to tell about reality. The most terrifying and liberating truth is this: you are not your opinions. Your opinions are not you. They're just mental habits you've picked up along the way, like accents or fashion preferences. They can change, disappear, or be completely replaced without affecting who you fundamentally are. Opinions are the source of virtually all human conflict. Not facts, not reality, not actual differences. Opinions. Two people can look at exactly the same situation and create completely different stories about what it means, then fight to the death defending their made-up interpretations. Wars are fought over opinions about land, resources, and power. Relationships end over opinions about behavior, values, and priorities. Families split apart over opinions about politics, religion, and lifestyle choices. None of these conflicts are about reality. They're about competing interpretations of reality. Here's the insidious part. Opinions create separation. They divide us into camps, teams, tribes.
They make us see others as wrong, stupid, evil,
or dangerous simply because they've constructed different stories about the same neutral reality. When you're locked in your opinion world, everyone else's opinion world looks like a threat. When you believe your interpretations are truth, everyone else's interpretations look like lies. When you think your mental constructions are reality, everyone else's mental constructions look like delusions. But what if there's a place beyond opinions? What if there's a space where people can meet without their stories, without their interpretations, without their judgments? What if that space is more real than any opinion has ever been? Opinions don't just create conflict with others, they create war within yourself. You have opinions about your opinions. You worry about other people's opinions of your opinions. You judge yourself for having the wrong opinions, or for not having strong enough opinions, or for changing your opinions. You lie awake at night wondering what people think about something you said, something you did, something you believe. You replay conversations, analyzing every word for hidden opinions. You check social media obsessively, hunting for validation of your opinions or evidence that others share them. You become a different person depending on who's listening. You have your work opinions, your family opinions, your friend opinions, your online opinions. You carefully curate which thoughts you share with which people, terrified of being judged for having the wrong opinion in the wrong context. But here's what's actually happening. You're not managing your authentic self. You're managing a collection of fictional characters, each defined by their opinions. And you've become so good at playing these roles that you've forgotten which one is actually you. The cruelest part is that most of the opinions you worry about don't even exist. You create entire scenarios in your mind where people are judging you, disagreeing with you, rejecting you based on opinions they might not even have. You suffer from opinions that exist only in your imagination. You've been taught that your opinions define you. I'm a person who believes X. I'm someone who likes Y. I'm the type who would never Z. But what if this is backwards? What if instead of your opinions defining you, you've been defining yourself by your opinions? You think you choose your opinions, but notice how desperately you defend them. Notice how personal it feels when someone disagrees with your opinion. Notice how much of your identity is wrapped up in being right about things that can't actually be proven right or wrong. You collect opinions like trophies, like security blankets, like armor. You think they protect you, define you, make you special. But what they actually do is limit you. Every opinion you adopt is a box you put yourself in, a boundary you draw around your possibilities. When you believe you're the type of person who likes classical music, you limit your ability to genuinely experience jazz. When you believe you're not a morning person, you close off the possibility of discovering energy in early hours. When you believe you're not creative, you stop attempting creative acts. Your opinions become your prison. They don't just describe your preferences, they prescribe your limitations. They don't just reflect your experiences, they restrict your future experiences. Every opinion you hold is a door you close, a possibility you eliminate, a version of yourself you'll never meet. But what if there's another way to live? What if instead of experiencing life through the filter of opinions, you experienced it directly? What would reality look like without the constant commentary of judgment? Imagine tasting food without immediately deciding if it's good or bad. Imagine meeting someone without instantly categorizing them as likable or unlikable. Imagine encountering a situation without immediately forming an opinion about whether it should or shouldn't be happening. This isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. This is about becoming present. When you drop the need to have an opinion about everything, you suddenly have the space to actually experience everything. When you stop evaluating, you start perceiving. Direct experience is more intimate than any opinion could ever be. Opinions create distance. They put you in the position of judge, separate from what you're judging. Direct experience dissolves that separation. You're not having thoughts about reality. You are participating in reality. One of the most exhausting aspects of having opinions is the constant need to be right. You don't just hold opinions. You defend them, argue for them, gather evidence to support them, and attack evidence that threatens them. You turn every conversation into a potential debate, every disagreement into a battle for truth. But what if you didn't need to be right about anything? What if you could let go of the burden of defending your interpretations of reality? What if you could engage with ideas without needing to own them? When you're not attached to being right, you become curious instead of defensive. When you're not invested in your opinions, you can explore other people's perspectives without feeling threatened. When you don't need to win arguments, you can actually have conversations. This is the ultimate freedom. The freedom from needing your version of reality to be the only valid version. The freedom from making everyone else wrong so you can be right. The freedom from defending positions you probably just inherited from someone else anyway. Here's what nobody tells you about dropping opinions. It doesn't make you indifferent. It makes you infinitely more compassionate. When you're not busy defending your version of truth, you have space to understand other people's experiences. When someone says something you used to disagree with, instead of immediately forming a counter-argument, you can simply listen. Instead of judging their perspective as wrong, you can be curious about how they arrived at it. Instead of seeing them as an opponent, you can see them as another human trying to make sense of reality. This is true wisdom, not having the right opinions, but creating space for all experiences to be witnessed without judgment. Not being right, but being present. Not winning arguments, but fostering understanding. When you drop your opinions, you don't become a doormat. You become a bridge. You don't lose your voice, you find your authentic voice beneath all the borrowed thoughts. You don't become weak, you become unshakable because there's nothing left to defend. But how do you function without opinions? How do you make decisions, form preferences, navigate social situations? Here's the secret: you function better. Much better. Instead of making decisions based on rigid opinions about what you should do, you make decisions based on what feels most alive, most authentic, most responsive to the actual situation in front of you. Instead of filtering every experience through preconceived notions, you respond freshly to each moment. You discover that underneath all your opinions, there's a deeper intelligence. A wisdom that doesn't need to think about everything but simply knows. A guidance system that doesn't rely on mental analysis but on direct perception of what's needed in each moment. This isn't about becoming mindless. It's about becoming mind-free. It's about accessing forms of knowing that don't depend on having the right thoughts about everything. When you drop the need to have opinions about everything, your relationships transform completely. You stop trying to change people's minds. You stop taking their different perspectives personally. You stop needing them to validate your worldview. You can love people without agreeing with them. You can respect people without sharing their beliefs. You can enjoy people without having the same opinions. You can be close to people without needing them to be like you. This is the deepest intimacy possible. Meeting someone in the space beyond opinions, in the reality that exists before judgment, in the presence that doesn't need anything to be different than it is. So what if opinions never existed? What would remain? What would be left of you, of your relationships, of your experience of reality? Everything would remain. Everything real anyway. Your capacity to love, to create, to experience beauty, to respond intelligently to situations, to connect with others, to grow and learn, none of this depends on opinions. All of this exists in the space where opinions have never been necessary. The world you think you know through your opinions is actually much smaller than the world you can experience without them. Your identity based on beliefs is much more limited than your identity rooted in pure being. What if the most radical thing you could do isn't to have better opinions, stronger convictions, or more sophisticated beliefs? What if the most radical thing you could do is to live for one day, just one day, without needing to have opinions about anything? What if you could experience your morning coffee without deciding if it's good or bad? What if you could interact with people without immediately categorizing them? What if you could encounter challenging situations without reflexively judging them as problems that shouldn't exist? What if you discovered that reality is infinitely more interesting, more beautiful, more alive when you're not constantly telling stories about it? What if you found out that you're infinitely more free, more present, more authentic when you're not constantly defending positions you probably never consciously chose? Here's my challenge to you. For the next 24 hours, try to catch yourself forming opinions. Just catch them. Notice the moment when your mind starts to evaluate, judge, categorize, or interpret. Notice how automatic it is. Notice how unnecessary most of it is. And then, for just a moment, try dropping the opinion and experiencing whatever is in front of you directly. Don't think about whether you like it or don't like it. Don't decide if it's right or wrong. Just experience it as it is. You might discover something extraordinary, a world that has been waiting for you to notice it, hidden behind all your thoughts about it. A version of yourself that has been waiting to emerge, buried under all your opinions about who you should be. What do you think? Or better yet, what do you experience when you're not thinking anything at all?